Hello, so today is going to be part 4 of the 4-part series on overcoming travel obstacles, and the last part is the financial side. How do you afford it if you are broke and can't afford it? And I'm going to tell you, I used to be broke. I was working 65 hours minimum every week, and if I wasn't committed to that, I had to get a second job. I had to have that kind of hours every week at least. And all of the money went into bills, and I had no extra money. If I did, I got to eat better than 2 for $1 hot dogs, because that's the deal we have at our big chain gas station in the area. Or at least it used to be. You can't get them 2 for $1 anymore. But when I say I used to be poor, I mean it. I had my utilities shut off. I was like months behind. Life was rough. But in the epitome of my rough life that I was having at that time, I also started traveling at the end of it. At the end of this struggle, when I was like, I can't do this anymore. When I really surrendered to my mental health struggle and had to make a change, I started traveling. So how did I do that when I was clearly very, very poor? I'm going to share with you some of my tips. And also some of my modern day tips, because I'm no longer poor. So, let me get started. My first tip for you is committing to your savings goal. Set a savings goal. And also, I just want to apologize because I meant to release this like a month ago, and I almost missed my flight the day I was going to release it. I flew home to get married, and now I'm back and settled in again, and back to tip 1. Tip 1, set a savings goal for traveling. And whatever your goal is, when you reach it, stay committed to it. Don't hit your goal. The first travel goal I ever set was I wanted to go to Arizona so bad, and when I got the mileage points built up on my credit card, I was going to book the ticket and I was going to go. And what happened was, to this day, I still have not visited Arizona. So it's not enough just to set a goal and reach your goal. Use that goal for travel. Commit to it. Don't feel guilty about it. Don't backtrack, because there's always something else. There's always birthdays or Christmases. There's always something. If you set a goal for travel and you have worked so hard to reach that goal, please keep it. Please keep it. Tip 2, which is what I just preluded to, is on my credit card, when I got my mileage points built up, I was going to build my ticket. So tip 2 is join a rewards program. I'm not endorsing venture cards, but that happens to be what I have, so I'll use that as my example. If you can trust yourself with a credit card, I know some people can't, it's okay. Don't get one. If you can, maybe use your mileage points. Every year I cash out my cash back for a trip. Last year I cashed it out for the beach. We went to the beach for 4 nights. Almost all 4 nights were paid for with my cashback points that I had. So that's one way that I travel cheap, and I did it then and I still do it now. Cashback it accumulates free if you're responsible with your credit card, and you can handle that. But it accumulates for free, and then when you want to book a trip, you already have the money there. So you don't have to save or budget, you have it already. It's great. I love it. And if you book, tip 3 is if you book through that membership. So I have a Venture card. If I book directly through the Venture card for my hotel or my rental car or my flights, not only do I get, sometimes I get discounts on it, but I also get 5 times the rewards, which saves me even more rewards to use later because I travel a moderate amount. This year I've used it for Hawaii, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Maryland. So if you travel a moderate amount, it's worth it, I think, to have it. But you have to book directly through the site to get those extra mileage points. And I can't always book everything I want through the site if I'm being picky. If I just want to find a hotel somewhere, sure, I can book through the site. But if I have a very specific historic bed and breakfast, you can't always find exactly what you want on the site. They're not always partnered with everybody. So that's one downside to it. But tip number 4, redirect your expenses. Nobody likes to do this, but sometimes you have to look at something you don't really need and what you are willing to live without in order to gain travel. I don't have TV. I, in my adult life, have very rarely ever had TV. It's not an expense that's worth it, in my opinion, to pay. We read books and we listen to music and that's it. So we don't watch TV. We did last week get a football membership, so we can watch football now, but once football season's over, we'll cancel it again. Also, this year, I somehow talked my husband into getting rid of his pickup truck. I'm just kidding. I can't talk him into anything. He agreed it was a good idea. But we got rid of his pickup truck. And so we no longer had the truck payment or the insurance payment. And it's a temporary thing. He will have a pickup truck again, but we're redirecting that expense for a while. I just realized last month I'm paying 3 gym memberships, so I had to do away with one. Because it was not, I don't need 3. Yes, I use all 3, but it's a little crazy to have 3, isn't it? A little bit. So pay attention to things and what can you live without and where can you maybe redirect something. Tip number 5, look for free events. Look for free fairs. I love the national parks for this reason. They're usually free. And they have reenactment days and they have all kinds of programs and they're usually free. I love it. But even if you're not at the national parks, there are lots of other things that are free. I happened to go down to the Pacific Tsunami Museum on free admittance day. What were the odds of that? That's just how blessed my life is, that I happen to go on free day. But there are free things. Look them up. Take advantage of it. There's no reason why you have to see the shiny, fancy, expensive things and think that's all you can have on your trip to make it fun and enjoyable. Take advantage of the free things. Why not? So there's 2 approaches to budgeting for a trip. The first approach is sorry, I just got a notification. First approach, you can pick your dream trip and figure out what you need for that trip and then save that exact amount. This is like my trip to Spain next year. It's pretty much, the trip is what it is. I can't really change it a whole lot. I need a certain amount to get there. So I'm saving to get to that trip. The other approach is, how much can I save in a month or 2 months? Because I have some vacation time coming up. What can I save until then? And then plan a trip based on that. So you can plan the trip and then come up with a budget, or you can come up with the budget and then plan the trip. hopefully you can hear me a little better. When I went home for the East Coast, my mic accidentally, I lost part of it. It's broken. But the test broadcast sounded pretty good, so maybe it's just Facebook. Tip number 7 is definitely you do not have to eat out breakfast, lunch, and dinner, okay? Save that money. The biggest expense when I travel is actually food. It's when I travel with my husband because he wants to eat out breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I tell him we cannot do that. It's not worth it financially. Pack lunches. It's okay to go to the store and get some sandwich stuff and pack sandwiches for lunch, because that's money you can save to go do something else later. It's worth it to save money on breakfast and lunch and then eat out dinner. That's what we usually do. We eat out dinner, but we save the money on breakfast and lunch. We pack sandwiches. Tip number 8, split the bill with a friend. If you can do that, take advantage of it. Take a friend with you. Share the room costs. When I camp with my mom, usually she buys a night, I buy a night. We just take turns. We split everything. When we go to the beach as a family, we all take turns cooking for a night. So the cost all gets split up, and it's definitely really helpful to be able to split costs. So make friends. Take a friend. Take a family. Take a cousin. Tip number 9, go in the off season. I do this a lot. I did this last year. We went to the beach the week after Labor Day, because on the middle and northeast coast, at least, Labor Day is like the end of peak season. So you get major discounts and sales if you go after Labor Day. So we always go the week after Labor Day. And I got married the weekend after Labor Day, so my anniversary is forever in off season, and I'm really excited about it. I could not have planned that any better. So the beach is one thing, but there are other things that have peak seasons and off seasons. And just because you go in off season doesn't mean you're going to miss out. We go right at the end of peak season, which means most of the stuff is still open, so we don't really miss out on anything, but we get discounts on pretty much everything. And it's less crowded because the kids are back in school. Tip number 10. So hostels and camping are usually the cheapest option. Camping is how I started traveling cheap. When I was doing overnight trips, I would camp really cheap for a night and then get up the next day and go home, because I just needed somewhere to crash while I was out doing things. Hostels are also very cheap. You can get private rooms in them, usually. The private rooms obviously cost more. But so you look into hostels and look into camping. I love camping. That's a huge financial saving for me. It's so cheap. Or it cannot be cheap. You can take 2 approaches to camping, the cheap approach and the non-cheap approach. Because it can also be a glamping experience that's not very cheap. Airbnb, the website, I try to stay away from Airbnb because it's just it had so many extra fees on it that it just gets kind of expensive. I love traditional B&Bs, but the website Airbnb, in my opinion, it gets a little expensive because they add on so many extra fees for themselves. I know sometimes I've heard of people who are they reach out directly to the people and then they kind of bypass Airbnb. And if you're traveling for longer periods of time, so if you want to travel a week or 2, that's great. But if you want to travel longer, for like a month or 2 months, if you only work part of the year and you have part off, and you want to travel for longer periods of time, it's way cheaper to get like a monthly thing, obviously. My first week in Hawaii, I paid the same amount that I'm now paying monthly. But I get to live here for long terms. I travel long terms because I work and travel at the same time. And other people do that too. So if that's something that you're thinking of or doing, you can sometimes get discounts on your rent if you do things like mow the grass. Maybe you work out a deal, you do some lawn care or something, and then you get a discount on your rent. One of my coworkers has that option. Let's see, where am I at now? Ooh, tip 11. You can rent. You don't have to buy. You do not have to buy a boat to enjoy a boat. I can rent a giant pontoon for my whole family for the whole day for $150 where I live. It doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to own the boat. You don't have to own a camper. You can rent campers. You can rent tents. You can rent paddle boards, kayaks. You don't have to buy just to get the experience. Sometimes it's worth it to buy financially, but if you can't afford a kayak or a paddleboard, you can rent them pretty cheap usually. So you can always think about renting. Or you could think about working while you travel. Maybe you don't have to be off work the entire time. You can pick up little jobs while you're there. I'm here working, that is my job. But sometimes people who are really handy can pick up or sell things or work digitally while they travel. Maybe you can DoorDash while you're there for 2 weeks. I don't do DoorDash, so I don't know if you can do it for only 2 weeks in a different area, but that would be an option. There's lots of seasonal work and temp work because there are people who travel full-time all the time, and that's what they do. They pick up part of the year work. Like they need to bring in a harvest, so they hire a bunch of people to bring in a harvest, and they only work for so long to bring the harvest in, and then they're done. So you can think about something like that. And volunteer work, there is sometimes volunteer jobs that pay housing and stuff. Well, they don't pay it, they provide it while you're there volunteering and working for them. Those jobs can sometimes be competitive, so keep your eye out for them. But there's also something I'm really looking into right now is you can do like 6-week volunteer trips where the first 4 weeks are you're volunteering, and then the next 2 weeks you're just like on vacation. And that's a little expensive, but it's way cheaper than it would be to just go vacation or live somewhere for 6 weeks, because these are international volunteer trips I'm looking at. So that is always an option, is to consider volunteer work. Also, tip 14, pay attention to your destinations, because some countries are much cheaper than other countries. My Pinterest feed tells me everything I need to know as far as which countries are cheap. So, and I noticed that a lot when I'm looking into my international volunteer. You can do 6 weeks volunteer in one country and 6 weeks volunteer in another country, but the one country costs 3 times more than the other one. It just depends where it is, where the destination is. So pick your countries carefully. I'm going to tell you, Hawaii, cost of living is high. It's not a cheap destination spot. Definitely not. Tip 15. It's going to take you a while to do this one, but build a network, build connections, make friends, stay connected with cousins. My cousin is coming to visit me next month, actually, and she gets to come visit Hawaii and not have to pay housing. I mean, my landlord charges a little bit, but that's like $600 extra in her pocket that she gets to keep and use while she's here for something else. Make connections. I made a connection last year with somebody who has connections all over the world and is constantly traveling cheap. Don't overstay your welcome. Be respectful, but make friends. It might take you a while, but keep that mindset and stay connected with people. It's worth it, in my opinion. Tip 16. Maybe you can save money on a rental car by taking a bus or a subway or renting a bike. Depending on where you're going and how far you're traveling, you might be able to just rent a bicycle for the day or get a subway pass and not get the car. You might be able to save money not getting a car or take a bus. You can use public transport sometimes. Rental cars can get pretty expensive sometimes. And tip 17 and 18 go back to the long-term travel. If you are going to travel, when my brother was traveling for like a month here, a month there, kind of stuff for work, he had to take housing stuff with him to furnish his housing, and he says it's much cheaper to to like mail it than it is to fly it. So instead of checking all these extra bags, he would just box it up and take it to the post office and mail it, and he says that's way cheaper. Also, that doesn't work for Hawaii because postage here is really expensive. But tip 18, I wished I'd have known this back at the start of the year. I messed up. But live and learn, and I'm going to share it with you. If you are a long-term traveling, so I travel for healthcare right now, that's why I'm here in Hawaii for most of the year. What I mess up on is I rented a car. I should have bought a car. And it's not just cars, you can do with other things. Buy and then resell. Sometimes it's worth it to invest up front because you can recuperate it at the end. I did not do that. I rented a car and I learned from my coworkers how stupid this was because I'm losing all of that money, whereas at the end of the year, I'm here for 9 months. It's like $9,000 to rent a car for 9 months. I could definitely have bought a car for less than that. It was a stupid thing on my part, but live and learn. Now I know for my next assignment not to rent a car, just to buy a car. If I can't take my car. I couldn't bring my car to Hawaii, but sometimes you can just drive cross country with your car if you want to. So those are my basic tips, and my favorite one is definitely camping and free events. I love national parks because they have both. They have camping and they have free events. And a lot of times I'll plan my trips for them. And I love my cash back. I love my venture card. I'm not pushing it on you. There are lots of programs. Look them up. Find one that's good for you if you can handle credit cards. But I love my cash back. I use it so much. I use it for booking through for the discounts a lot. And travel does not have to be expensive. Sometimes it is. My trip to Egypt that I'm bucket list hoping for one day will be very expensive. My trip to Spain, it doesn't have to be. It's going to be a few grand, but it's going to be way less than it could be because it's 5 weeks. And I do a lot of cheap travel because I was very, very poor when I started this. And it can be done. It can be done cheap. But stick to it, please. I'm going back to tip number 1 to finish. When you reach your savings goal, please use it for travel. You've worked for it. You deserve it. It's so hard to not feel guilty about spending money traveling. But you don't have to feel guilty because you worked for it. That's what it was for. Don't let anything guilt you out of taking that trip because life is only so long and you have to live it. Okay. That's all for this trip. I'm sorry it's a month late. Like I said, I got married. I had a lot going on. But I'm settled back into Hawaii now, and I'll be doing these more regularly. This was it for this series. We're going to get into something really fun next month. Alright. Love you. Peace out.